Welcome back, Coinology. In the dim light of an ordinary American pocket, a single coin rests quietly among others. Its coppery shine has faded with time, but its story glows brighter than ever. The year etched upon its surface reads 1982. A small letter D sits beneath the date, a symbol that would one day set off waves of fascination, discovery, and fortune across the numismatic world. This is the story of the 1982 D Lincoln cent, a coin that looks simple to the untrained eye, but behind that familiar face lies one of the most complex and mysterious chapters in U.S. coin history. A story of transition, of change, of mistakes, and of hidden treasure waiting to be discovered in the change jar of an unsuspecting collector. The early 1980s were years of transformation for the United States Mint. Inflation, metal prices, and economic shifts were challenging even the smallest details of American currency. Copper, once the proud heart of the Lincoln cent, had become too expensive. The Mint realized that the cost of making a penny was approaching, and at times exceeding, its very face value. The U.S. government had to act fast. It was 1982 when they made a historic decision that would alter the composition of the penny forever. For more than a century, the cent had been mostly copper, a material that carried a sense of warmth and tradition. But by the dawn of 1982, a revolution was brewing in the minting presses, a quiet transformation that would give birth to one of the most talked about pennies in American history, the 1982 D Lincoln cent. In that fateful year, the U.S. Mint faced a dilemma. Copper prices had surged to record highs, and continuing to mint coins with 95% copper was no longer sustainable. The decision was made to shift to a new composition, a zinc core coated with copper, weighing just 2.5 grams instead of the old 3.11 grams. It might sound like a small change, but in the world of coins, such a change was monumental. Because 1982 was the transition year, both copper and zinc cents were struck that year, and not just one or two designs, but 7 major varieties in total. Large date, small date, copper, zinc, Philadelphia, Denver, all these combinations existed. But one of them, the 1982 D small date copper cent, would become a legend from a collector's perspective. The 1982 D cent isn't just a coin. It's a symbol of discovery, a challenge, a hidden gem buried among billions. Billions of pennies were struck that year, but only a few, or perhaps one, emerged with the rare combination of copper composition and small date design at the Denver Mint. The mint mark D under the date represents the Denver Mint, one of the pillars of U.S. coin production. Normally, Denver's precision was unmatched, but 1982 was not a normal year. The transition between metals, the variety of dyes, and the sheer volume of production led to confusion and inconsistency. Somewhere between copper and zinc, between large date and small date, between routine and rarity, something extraordinary was created. For decades, collectors scoured rolls of pennies, examined jars of coins, and searched relentlessly through change, dreaming of finding the elusive 1982 D small date copper cent. For most, it remained a myth, a rumor whispered across coin forums and collectors' conventions. Then came a moment that would change everything, a discovery that confirmed the legend. A verified 1982 D small date struck on a copper planchet surfaced, authenticated by the experts at PCGS, one of the most respected coin grading services in the world. Its existence was no longer myth, it was fact. And with that, its value skyrocketed. What was once a mere cent was now worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, to the right collector. Over time, the story grew bigger, more dramatic, and more legendary, as collectors and dreamers alike imagined that one day such a coin might be worth millions, or even billions. But what makes this coin so special, so valuable? The answer lies not just in its rarity, but in what it represents. The 1982 D penny captures a moment in time when America was changing, politically, economically, and even in the smallest details of daily life. The penny was always more than just a coin, it was a symbol of trust, a piece of history that connected generations. On one side, Abraham Lincoln's profile, solemn, dignified, eternal. On the other, the Lincoln Memorial, representing unity, strength, and the enduring American spirit. But hidden within this familiar design lies an invisible story, one of evolution, adaptation, and the unpredictable quirks of minting history. The D Mint mark stands for Denver, Colorado, a place that has produced billions of coins over the decades. The Denver Mint was known for its efficiency, for churning out coins that fueled the American economy. But 1982 was a year of experimentation. The Mint had to use up existing copper planchets while also starting production of the new zinc ones. That mix of old and new led to unexpected results. Some planchets were struck with dies meant for the new small date design. Others were misfed, mixed, or misplaced. The result? A handful of coins struck on the wrong metal. In the world of coin collecting, that's the perfect storm, a combination of error, rarity, and historical significance that sends value through the roof. Imagine holding a coin in your hand, weighing just a few grams, yet holding the potential to change your life forever. The 1982 small date copper penny is exactly that, a treasure disguised as pocket change. Weighing 3.11 grams, just like the older copper coins, it stands apart from the later zinc ones that weigh 2.5 grams. To the naked eye, it may look identical, but a simple scale can reveal the truth. That tiny difference in weight transforms a 1-cent piece into an object worth a fortune. Stories spread across online forums, news articles, and YouTube channels about people who found valuable pennies in old jars or inherited collections. Some were skeptical. Others became believers. And soon, the 1982 penny wasn't just a coin, it became a cultural phenomenon. Its legend is not only built on metal and minting, but on mystery. Only one confirmed example of the 1982 small date copper cent has ever been authenticated. Just one. That single coin, sitting in a holder marked by PCGS, represents the bridge between eras, between copper and zinc, between ordinary and extraordinary. If just one exists, who's to say there aren't more? The possibility alone keeps collectors searching. Every penny in circulation, every old coin roll, every dusty jar in a garage might hold the key to unimaginable fortune. The design of the coin itself is iconic. The obverse features the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Over a century later, that same design continues to grace the penny, a testament to its timeless appeal. The word liberty appears to Lincoln's left, a symbol of the nation's enduring values. To the right, the motto "In God We Trust" stands proudly, reminding generations of the faith that has guided the country through triumph and trial alike. Beneath the date, the small but significant D are of the real-life monument. For decades, this reverse design has been admired for its elegance and precision. But by 1982, this design was nearing its end, as future changes in American coinage would soon replace it. In that sense, the 1982 penny represents not only a physical transition but also an artistic farewell to precision meets human error. And in the case of the 1982 small date copper cent, that error turned into a legend. In recent years, stories about the coin's value FCA could change someone's life forever. The fascination with rare coins isn't just about money. It's about the connection to history. Every coin carries the fingerprints of time, the press of a machine, the design of an artist, the approval of a nation. Each penny that rolls off the minting line becomes a tiny time capsule, carrying the spirit of its era. The 1982 penny is a time capsule of transformation, a piece that marks the moment America's smallest coin took its biggest leap. As the world continues to evolve, the penny, often overlooked, discarded, even considered obsolete, holds a stubborn kind of endurance. It has outlasted wars, recessions, and technological revolutions. And in the story of the 1982 penny, that endurance takes on an even deeper meaning. Because even in a world rushing toward the digital, the penny reminds us of something tangible, something you can hold, feel, and treasure. The sound of a penny hitting the counter is a sound most people ignore. It's light, metallic, almost meaningless in a world where digital numbers flash across screens and cash itself begins to disappear. But in that faint ring of copper lies a secret that could turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. Imagine a single coin that once passed through the fingers of an unaware cashier, a student paying for lunch, or a driver buying gas, now locked away behind protective glass, insured for more than houses, cars, or even fortunes. That is the paradox of the 1982 penny. It hides in plain sight, the smallest denomination carrying one of the grandest stories in American numismatics. Collectors and historians often describe 1982 as the split year, the year when the U.S. Mint found itself balancing two realities, tradition and innovation. Copper had always defined the cent. Its reddish hue, its weight, and even its sound were part of the American experience. Children learned math by counting them, soldiers carried them for luck. But when copper prices soared, sentiment had to yield to economics. Zinc, a cheaper and lighter metal, stepped in to replace copper, though it would never replace its legacy. During the transition, the mint produced both types, copper and zinc, sometimes on the same day, using dies that marked either large or small dates. It was a logistical maze, and amid that controlled chaos, anomalies were born. Some of those anomalies became the heartbeats of collectors' dreams. The 1982 small date copper cent became the most mysterious of them all. The Denver Mint had officially switched to zinc by the time the small date dies were in use, which meant that none of those coins should exist on copper planchets. And yet, one slipped through. Perhaps a leftover copper blank was accidentally fed into the press, perhaps a worker missed it in the transition. Whatever the reason, it became a miracle of metal, a coin that defied policy, expectation, and time. For years, nobody knew it existed. Bags of pennies rolled off conveyor belts, shipped to banks, poured into circulation. Millions of hands touched them. Decades later, in the age of internet forums and magnifying glasses, the search began anew. Collectors began weighing every 1982 penny they could find, hoping for that 3.11 gram reading instead of 2.5. Many found copper 1982s, yes, but from Philadelphia, not Denver. And then came the discovery that changed the narrative: a verified 1982D small date struck on a copper planchet. It was confirmed, graded, encapsulated, and introduced to the world as one of the rarest modern coins in existence. The story spread like wildfire. Television shows on rare coins mentioned it. YouTube channels devoted hours to explaining how to tell copper from zinc, how to spot large dates and small dates, how to weigh and measure. Suddenly, a whole new generation of treasure hunters emerged. People who had never cared about coins were now dumping out jars of change, searching for magic among the mundane. It was no longer just about numismatics, it became a movement of hope and curiosity. The magic of the 1982D penny lies not only in its composition but also in its symbolism. Abraham Lincoln's face on the obverse had watched over America through the Great Depression, 2 world wars, the moon landing, and the dawn of the digital age. His image had been pressed into billions of coins, yet this one coin somehow stood apart. It represented survival through change, the idea that something can evolve and yet remain true to its roots. The Lincoln cent had adapted from copper to zinc, from heavy to light, from old to new, and still carried the same message of trust and unity. The motto, "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date beneath Lincoln's profile tie the past and the present together. And at the bottom, that little D, almost unnoticed by most, connects it all to a specific place and moment: a single press in the Denver Mint that accidentally created history. For collectors, condition is everything. Mint luster, die marks, strike sharpness, all these details can change a coin's destiny. A 1982D penny in ordinary circulation might be worth only 1 cent, but the same coin in pristine condition, graded as mint state by PCGS or NGC, can reach astronomical values when it carries the right combination of metal and date style. The confirmed small date copper example remains one of a kind, and speculation around its possible siblings drives the excitement further. Each rumor of a new find sends waves through collector communities. Each verified test refines the legend. The line between myth and discovery remains deliciously blurred, fueling endless fascination. In truth, much of the 1982D penny's allure comes from the human side of the story. It's a story of mistakes that became miracles, of people who looked closer when everyone else ignored what was right before them. The thrill of the hunt isn't just about money, it's about discovery itself. The moment someone sets a penny on a scale and sees the needle stop at 3.11 grams is like a spark of electricity, the intersection of chance, patience, and history. That spark keeps thousands of collectors searching, year after year. The economic world of coins is complex, too. Value isn't determined solely by metal or rarity, it's shaped by demand, storytelling, and cultural resonance. The 1982D penny embodies all of these. Its fame on social media and in news stories has transformed it from a numismatic curiosity into a cultural phenomenon. People speak of it in the same breath as other legendary coins: the 1943 copper cent, the 1955 double die, the 1969 double die. Each of these coins carries the aura of impossible luck, of turning an everyday object into a fortune. When people hear that a penny might be worth $16 billion, the figure is fantastical, yet the belief persists because it taps into something deeper: the hope that hidden value still exists in the world, waiting to be discovered by ordinary hands. If you walk into a coin show today, you'll find entire tables devoted to 1982 cents. Dealers place digital scales beside magnifying lamps. Labels read "Check your weight, 3.11 G equals copper, 2.5 G equals zinc." Collectors compare date styles, looking for the telltale differences between the tall, thin numbers of the small date and the heavier, fuller shapes of the large date. Conversations buzz with technical terms, die pairings, planchet stock, min error analysis, but beneath all the jargon lies something almost poetic: the wonder of time captured in metal. Beyond the technical details, there's a philosophical side to the 1982D story. Every penny minted that year is a metaphor for transition, for evolution under pressure. When resources grow scarce, when traditions are tested, when change becomes unavoidable, the smallest shifts can create the largest ripples. The switch from copper to zinc wasn't just an economic adjustment, it was a reflection of a world learning to adapt. And within that adaptation came the accidental birth of rarity, a reminder that even in efficiency, imperfections can yield beauty. Some call it luck, others call it destiny. The coin itself doesn't know, it simply exists, carrying the marks of its creation like scars of history. Its surface shows the fine lines of the die, the microswirls of minting pressure, the faint traces of circulation. Yet under a microscope, even its imperfections tell a story of craftsmanship. The Denver Mint in 1982 wasn't a museum, it was an industrial powerhouse. Machines thundered day and night, metal blanks clattering through hoppers, dies striking thousands of times per hour. Amid that rhythmic chaos, one copper blank remained when it shouldn't have. It passed through unnoticed, struck by a small date die, ejected with a hiss of compressed air, and dropped into a bin among millions of zinc pieces. That unnoticed moment became immortal. To think that something so tiny could inspire such passion is a testament to human imagination. Collectors have devotists. The ophagination, and perhaps that's why people still talk about values as vast as $16,000 million. The number isn't literal, it's symbolic. It represents wonder, possibility, and the priceless excitement of uncovering something no one believed could exist. When people say the coin is worth billions, what they really mean is that its story is beyond measure. As light glints across a tray of old pennies, one can imagine that somewhere, in an attic or an heirloom jar, another 1982 copper small date lies waiting. Time moves on, generations change, but the hope remains constant. Each year, more call. Somewhere in the silence of an attic, a jar rattles. Inside it, a lifetime of change clinks together, decades of forgotten errands, vending machines, and school lunches. Dust settles on its glass rim, sunlight glimmers through, and among the ordinary lies the extraordinary. One coin, one 1982 cent, copper at its core, quietly waits. Its story has traveled further than the hands that once held it. It is no longer just metal, it is legend, rumor, prophecy, and proof that history hides in the smallest things. Collectors say every coin has a voice if you listen closely enough. The 1982 penny speaks softly but powerfully about transition, chance, and persistence. Its surface reflects not only Abraham Lincoln's face but also the journey of an entire economy. In the early 1980s, the United States was redefining itself, technology rising, inflation surging, old industries fading, new ones awakening. Even the penny, humble and overlooked, could not escape the tides of change. Copper had grown too costly, its price pulled by global demand, its mining expensive. The U.S. Mint sought efficiency, and thus the copper era gave way to zinc. Yet in that pragmatic change, something accidental, almost poetic, happened. Amid tons of zinc, one copper blank remained. Struck in Denver, marked with a D, and dated 1982, it became a bridge between centuries, between old America and new. When numismatists speak of this coin, their eyes light with a quiet reverence. They know what it means for a coin to defy expectation. They know that rarity isn't just about numbers, it's about impossibility made real. Billions of 1982 pennies exist, yet only one confirmed small-date copper example has ever surfaced. That mathematical miracle transforms it into an artifact of mythic proportion. It challenges our sense of order. It whispers that even in a system designed for perfection, chaos can create beauty. In basements and living rooms across the country, the search continues. Parents teach their children how to tell copper from zinc, how the sound is different when dropped on a tabletop, how the color is subtly deeper, how a small digital scale can reveal a secret. The ritual becomes a kind of modern gold rush. People film themselves pouring out bags of pennies, documenting the process, hoping that the glint of one coin might change their fate. For many, it isn't about wealth, it's about participation in something larger, a collective treasure hunt that unites generations. Meanwhile, at the great coin shows, glass cases sparkle under fluorescent light. Dealers display slabs of certified coins, their labels carrying grades like MS65 or MS67RD. Somewhere in those rows sits the 1982 copper small date, its story told and retold. Collectors stop to stare, as if looking at a relic from another age. They discuss its weight, 3.11 grams, recite its composition, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, and marvel at the accident that preserved it. The coin itself, encased and untouched, seems to glow faintly under the lights, a reminder that perfection is sometimes born from imperfection. Economists might see it differently. To them, it's an example of how human perception creates value. Metal worth a fraction of a cent becomes priceless when paired with story, rarity, and emotion. The market responds to passion, not just scarcity. That is why auctions for rare coins often feel more like theater than trade. The air crackles with anticipation. The auctioneer calls out numbers, bidders raise paddles, and each raise represents not just money but belief in the power of history captured in copper. When the 1982 cent was first authenticated, its value soared into tens of thousands, and each retelling added zeros not just to its price but to its legend. People began to imagine unimaginable figures, millions, even billions. To outsiders, such numbers seem absurd. To those who understand the language of rarity, they make perfect sense, because what is value, really? It's not only the sum of materials, it's the weight of meaning. The 1982 penny holds the memory of a minting era ending, the artistry of Brenner's portrait still looking resolutely forward, and the idea that mistakes can outlast intentions. It is a story pressed into metal. And stories, when rare enough, become treasures beyond calculation under a microscope. The surface of the coin becomes a landscape, tiny ridges, valleys, and contours formed under tons of pressure. The edges shimmer where the die met planchet, each line recording the force of history. Those who study coins call it die life, the period during which a die produces impressions before wearing down. Each die tells its own story through microscopic clues. Somewhere in those clues lies the fingerprint of the Denver Mint's fateful year. Specialists compare those patterns, seeking to match the rare copper coin to others struck from the same die, hoping to map its exact moment of creation. Each comparison narrows the mystery, yet the heart of it remains unsolved. How did this single copper blank survive the transition? Did it slip from an earlier batch? Was it intentionally fed as a test? The records are silent, the silence becomes part of the myth. In that silence, imagination thrives. The internet turned what once belonged to a small circle of experts into a worldwide adventure. Forums overflowed with photographs of pennies on kitchen scales, people asking, "Is this the one?" Videos amassed millions of views. For a generation raised on screens, the 1982 D penny became both history spirit of boundless imagination. It represents the dream that value can transcend logic, that the story itself is the treasure. For storytellers and filmmakers, the coin offers a perfect metaphor. A small object, overlooked by billions, suddenly becomes the key to vast possibility. Its shine, though dull with age, illuminates the idea that everything, every object, every moment has hidden significance waiting to be seen. In schools and museums, the 1982 D cent is used to teach history, economics, even philosophy. It shows how decisions ripple outward, how a change in metal composition reflects a nation's struggle between cost and sem. Feel the difference. Of Lincoln remains one of the longest-running coin designs in history. Over a century after its debut, it still carries cal. The 1982 D penny thus embodies two artists' visions, two eras of American identity. And hidden beneath that artistry, the unseen copper core becomes the final layer of meaning, a substance replaced but never forgotten. In the numismatic world, the 1982 D cent has become a compass pointing toward possibility. It reminds experts that surprises still exist even in a field measured to microns. It inspires newcomers to start with pocket change, to look closely, to ask questions. Some of those newcomers will one day become the next generation of historians and scientists, driven by the same curiosity that once led someone to weigh a single penny and discover history reborn. As the decades pass, more advanced tools emerge: X-ray fluorescence scanners, high-resolution digital microscopes, 3D mapping software, all seeking to analyze coins with precision undreamed of in 1982. And yet, despite all that technology, the mystery of the 1982 D copper small date remains partly emotional. Technology can reveal its metal, its die state, its microscopic scratches, but not the human story behind its creation. That story lives in whispers from mint workers, in half-remembered shifts, in the clang of presses that never expected to mint immortality. The 1982 D penny is not alone in that sense. Every rare coin, every 1943 bronze cent, every 1955 doubled die shares the same paradox: created by mistake, preserved by passion. But none carry quite the same aura of transformation as the 1982 D, standing at the crossroads of copper and zinc, of past and future. Its existence reminds us that even progress leaves traces of what came before. In quiet moments, collectors sometimes hold an ordinary 1982 D zinc penny and imagine what it would feel like to hold the copper one. They imagine its weight, its subtle difference, the knowledge that within their fingers lies a fortune of history. Some even dream about the day another example might appear. What if somewhere, in a forgotten bankroll, a second 1982 D copper small date waits? What if fate allows one more accident to surface? The mere thought keeps the search alive, and so the 1982 D penny endures, not just as an object but as a story that renews itself each time someone looks closer. In a world where value often feels abstract, where numbers flicker on screens and vanish, this coin grounds us. It reminds us that worth can be tangible, weight can matter, history can live in metal. It tells us that even the story of the 1982 D penny does not end with discovery, it lives on in the quiet hum of curiosity. Somewhere, in every household drawer, every forgotten tin box, every coin jar resting behind the clock on the mantel, there may still lie an unnoticed piece of that history. Time moves in silence, but the coins remain, waiting. Their edges dull, their color darkens, but their voices never fade. Each one tells a fragment of a much larger tale, of a nation that changed its smallest coin to save itself from rising cost, of machines that pressed metal into meaning, and of one moment in Denver that produced a coin destined to transcend its face value forever. Even now, decades after the decision to replace copper with zinc, collectors still measure their pennies as if seeking a heartbeat. They tilt them under lamplight, testing the reflections, listening for that distinct copper ring when the coin strikes the table. Some say they can sense it instantly, that the sound carries a certain warmth, a vibration unlike zinc's faint clink. It is a ritual almost sacred, a way of touching the past through simple motion. That tiny sound links generations, the sound of a 1909 penny dropped by a farmer into his son's hand, the sound of a 1982 D slipping from a mint conveyor belt onto steel. History repeats itself and echoes. The market that surrounds such rarity is part science, part theater, part dream. Auction houses present the great coins like jewels under glass, with spotlights and silence. The auctioneer's voice becomes a kind of music, calling out bids that rise not from greed but reverence. Those who raise their paddles are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, a moment of impossible survival. The 1982 D copper small date is a story that no other coin can tell. It represents error turned to art, mistake turned to miracle. Its worth, spoken of in millions, imagined in billions, is less a number than a symbol of what we believe value to be. In a world driven by perfection, it reminds us that the most beautiful things are often accidents. It teaches that even when systems aim for precision, the universe has its own rhythm, its own quiet rebellion. Somewhere in the mint that year, a press struck one extra time, on one leftover blank, and history shifted by a fraction of a gram. From that fraction came fascination, and from fascination came legend. Walk into any classroom where history is taught and lay a 1982 penny on the desk. Ask the students what they see. Most will see only a coin. Then tell them its story, that one just like it, struck in Denver, carries a mystery so rare that the world still searches for its twin. Their eyes widen. They begin to understand that history isn't locked in books, it hides in the pockets of ordinary people. That realization turns curiosity into inspiration. Some will go home and empty jars, not for money but for wonder. That is the legacy of the 1982 D penny. It awakens the collector's spirit in everyone. And what of the coin itself, the solitary survivor, the authenticated miracle? It rests now in a case, its copper surface sealed from the air that once polished it in countless hands. Around it, cameras flash, and people whisper as if before a relic. The slab that holds it bears a label, 1982 D small date copper. Beneath the words lies the weight of time, 3.11 grams that have carried half a century of imagination. It is not the shiniest coin, nor the oldest, yet it glows with something deeper than luster. It glows with the human longing for connection. Each scratch is a sentence, each dent a pause, each glimmer a memory of light falling through the Denver Mint's high windows long ago. But if you trace the coin's design with your eyes, Lincoln still looks forward, calm, eternal. The motto "In God We Trust" arches above his head, not as decoration but as declaration. Liberty stands beside him, and beneath the date, the tiny D gleams. It is the smallest of marks, yet it anchors the entire legend. Without that single letter, there would be no mystery, no myth. That D binds this story to a place, a building of stone and steel in Colorado where workers once walked between roaring presses, unaware that one of those machines had just minted a treasure. Flip it over and you see the Lincoln Memorial, its pillars carved in miniature, the seated statue visible between them. That reverse is more than architecture, it is a message about endurance. The real Lincoln Memorial stands in Washington as a monument to unity after division. The one on the penny reminds us that unity can be found even in the smallest of things, in shared symbols, in collective memory, in the humble coin that passes from hand to hand. The irony is that the penny itself, the most common of all coins, has been debated for elimination countless times. Economists argue that it costs more to make than it's worth. Yet its survival mirrors the story of the 1982 D cent itself, underestimated, yet enduring. As long as people believe in its story, as long as they listen for that soft copper ring, the penny will remain a part of American life. In collectors' gatherings, the 1982 D is spoken of with the reverence usually reserved for ancient relics. Some compare it to a time capsule, a fossil from an industrial age now fading into memory. They imagine the worker who loaded the presses, the supervisor who signed the report, the day's last shift when the copper blank rolled through unnoticed. Perhaps the worker paused for a moment, stretching, unaware that the coin just minted would one day be worth more than any he could earn in a lifetime. History rarely announces itself, it hides in routine. Over the years, the stories around this coin have grown taller. Some claim there are more examples hidden away, waiting to be discovered. Others believe only one will ever exist, the lone survivor of a transitional experiment. Whether there are one or many, the truth is less important than the journey. The act of searching transforms those who participate. Each person who looks becomes part of the legend, adding another layer to its mythology. Imagine the moment if another copper small date were to surface, a collector at home, weighing a penny, realizing the scale reads 3.11 grams, the digits glowing green under a desk lamp. Heart racing, hands trembling, they compare the date style, the delicate shape of the 8, the curve of the 2, the sharpness of the D. Realization dawns. The impossible has happened again. That moment would echo around the world, spreading through screens and headlines, reigniting the fever of discovery. It would remind everyone that the universe still has surprises left, that history is not yet finished writing its chapters. Whether or not that day ever comes, the coin's meaning endures. It represents the enduring relationship between people and the objects they create. It speaks of craftsmanship, of chance, of memory. It invites reflection on what we choose to value. In a culture where worth is measured in data and digits, the 1982 D penny asks a quieter question: what is value without story? What is wealth without wonder? As the camera of our imagination pans across a table scattered with coins, light catches their edges like tiny mirrors. Each reflects a piece of a nation's past. There is no fanfare, no music, just the soft rhythm of metal rolling against wood. The voice of history whispers through that sound, reminding us that progress is never perfect, that mistakes may hold more meaning than successes. The 1982 descent is proof of that. A misstep, a leftover blank, a single strike, and yet, from that moment, a legend that continues to inspire. Its estimated worth, spoken in billions, may never be realized in currency, but its true value lies in imagination, curiosity, and connection. It is priceless because it refuses to be ordinary. Some night, long after collectors have gone to sleep, a faint light might still shine on a workbench where a magnifying glass rests beside a small digital scale. A jar of pennies sits half empty, one coin glinting faintly among the rest. Perhaps it's zinc, perhaps copper, it hardly matters. The search itself is the reward. In that quiet pursuit, the spirit of discovery lives on, echoing through time like the steady beat of a minting press still striking somewhere deep in memory, and so, the story returns to where it began, with a single coin resting in the palm of a hand. The world rushes around it, indifferent, but the coin remains still, timeless. It carries the weight of history, the warmth of copper, and the shimmer of possibility. The year on its face, 1982. The mark beneath, D. The value on paper, 1 cent. But in truth, it is worth far more than numbers can express. It is worth every dream of those who believe that even the smallest pieces of our world can hold infinite meaning. There is a peculiar silence that surrounds certain objects, a stillness that feels deliberate, as if time itself pauses in their presence. The 1982 D penny is one of those objects. It does not shout for attention, it waits. It has waited through decades of circulation, through drawers and wallets, through the slow erosion of daily use. Somewhere, beneath fingerprints and dust, it has been carried through lives, unnoticed yet enduring, holding its quiet truth. In that silence lies a kind of power. It reminds us that the rarest things rarely announce themselves. Collectors often speak of the moment when a coin ceases to be money and becomes meaning. It is not the mint that grants this transformation but the story we weave around it. The 1982 D Lincoln cent crossed that invisible line long ago. Once, it was one among billions. Now it is a relic of an age of transition, an age when metal was more than material, it was memory cast in shape. To study it is to touch the hands that designed it, the machines that pressed it, and the nation that gave it purpose. History, when told through coins, becomes personal. Every redesign of the cent reflects a decision about identity, about what a country chooses to honor. Lincoln's profile on that copper surface has outlasted wars, recessions, and generations of change. He gazes forward still, his expression thoughtful, as if aware that even his smallest likeness would one day carry stories beyond measure. The 1982 D penny carries his image like a promise that ideals can endure even as metals and markets shift. There is a paradox at the center of its worth. On paper, a cent is almost valueless. Yet when rarity enters the equation, that same cent becomes priceless. It is the alchemy of human fascination, the transformation of the ordinary into the extraordinary through attention and belief. The $16 billion figure whispered in stories and headlines may never be realized in any transaction, but it lives a symbol, a way for people to express awe, to measure wonder in the language of numbers. Because in truth, the value of this coin lies not in trade but in emotion. It is the embodiment of discovery, proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. Think of the journey of a single penny. It passes from a mint worker's gloved hands into a bag, from that bag into circulation, from one pocket to another, crossing cities, states, perhaps oceans. It buys a candy, pays a small debt, disappears into a jar, emerges years later under fluorescent light as someone counts change. The life of a coin mirrors the life of a person, constant motion, moments of purpose, long stretches of waiting. And like people, some are destined to be remembered not because they were perfect, but because they were different. When we speak of the 1982 D penny, we also speak of time itself, the way it compresses stories into metal and preserves them against decay. Each nick and mark on its surface is a word in a language that only patience can read. To hold such a coin is to feel both the weight of a nation's labor and the lightness of chance. It is a reminder that history is not confined to monuments or archives, it circulates quietly through our lives, disguised as something small enough to fit between two fingers. Some evenings, coin enthusiasts gather not for profit but for fellowship. They bring magnifying glasses, scales, tiny envelopes marked with years and mint letters. They talk softly about die varieties, doubling, the feel of copper versus zinc. Among them, the legend of the 1982 D copper small date is told again and again. The details shift slightly each time, as all legends do, but the heart remains the same. One coin, against all odds, became eternal. Around the table, eyes glint like polished metal, and for a moment, everyone is a seeker of history. The room fills with quiet reverence, the kind reserved for sacred artifacts or whispered dreams. It is easy to forget that money was once designed not just to spend but to inspire. The artistry of coinage speaks of pride and craft, of an age when engraving was poetry carved into metal. The lines on Lincoln's coat, the tiny letters along the rim, the subtle relief of the memorial, all are strokes of intention, meant to endure longer than paper, longer than speech. The 1982 D coin carries those intentions forward, a messenger from an era when even the smallest things were made to last. Imagine standing in the Denver Mint in 1982. Machines roar, the floor trembles, and copper blanks cascade like waterfalls of light. Workers move with practiced rhythm, feeding presses, inspecting trays, sealing boxes. Amid the noise and motion, one blank, perhaps leftover from an earlier batch, slips unnoticed into the feed line. The die descends, the strike lands, and in that instant, history alters course. No one sees it happen, yet decades later, collectors will call it miraculous. That single moment, unrecorded, uncelebrated, becomes a legend whispered across generations. Such is the way of all discoveries, they begin as accidents and end as symbols. Today, the coin story spreads through screens and voices. YouTube channels, forums, documentaries, each retelling keeps the myth alive. For viewers around the world, it becomes more than numismatics, it becomes narrative. The fascination draws millions, not because of greed but because of the thrill of possibility. People begin searching through their own change, their own drawers, their own forgotten jars. The world feels smaller, more connected, as countless hands turn over pennies under light, all chasing the same dream. In those moments, community forms, not around possession, but around hope. Hope, after all, is the hidden metal in every coin. It is what gives currency its pulse. The 1982 D Lincoln cent is hope preserved, hope that mistakes matter, that chance favors the attentive, that something extraordinary might emerge from the ordinary. It tells us that patience is rewarded, that history rewards those who listen. Even if one never finds the rare copper small date, the act of looking keeps imagination alive. Every search, every small discovery, becomes part of a larger human story. As the decades roll forward, the penny itself may vanish from circulation. Economists will declare it obsolete, politicians will debate its cost, and machines will round our purchases to the nearest nickel. Yet, even then, the legend of 1982 D will remain, kept alive by collectors, historians, and storytellers. It will exist as myth, a reminder of a time when one coin, one tiny error, could unite millions in wonder. And perhaps, in some future museum, a child will stand before a glass case and read the inscription, the 1982 D Lincoln cent, copper small date, a coin that changed history. The child will press close, seeing the glint of reddish metal, and feel a spark of curiosity ignite. That spark will travel forward, as all sparks do, lighting new paths of fascination that if you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the heartbeat of metal, the pulse of history. Somewhere, beneath the hum of modern life, the echo of the minting press still rings. It is steady, patient, eternal. Each strike a reminder that creation is both deliberate and accidental, that meaning often hides in places we overlook. The 1982 D coin carries that echo, not as sound but as spirit. It speaks for all the forgotten things that wait to be seen, and so, as our story drifts to its quiet close, the coin rests once more in the palm of imagination. Its surface reflects the world, imperfect, worn, but beautiful in its endurance. We are drawn to it not because of what it's worth, but because of what it represents, the endless dance between chance and intention, between memory and discovery. The 1982 D penny reminds us that value is never fixed, it is shaped by the stories we choose to tell. In the end, the legend of this coin is not about copper or zinc, not about millions or billions. It is about us, our need to believe that even the smallest fragment of our world can hold greatness, that somewhere in the ordinary lies the extraordinary, waiting patiently for a glance, a scale, a whisper of recognition. And when we find it, we are reminded of something profound, that history lives not in the grand and distant, but in the small, the near, the things we touch every day without seeing. The 1982 D cent is proof that wonder still exists, pressed into metal, passed through hands, carried through time, forever shining beneath the quiet dust of the world. As the lights dim and the last frames of history flicker across the screen, we are left with a simple truth: the smallest things can hold the greatest weight. A coin no larger than a fingertip, a sliver of copper pressed 4 decades ago, has traveled farther than any monument. It has lived in silence while the world changed around it. And yet, when held up to the light, it still glows with a quiet defiance, whispering that meaning never fades, it only hides until someone looks close enough to see it. The story of the 1982 D Lincoln cent is not just about a rare piece of metal, it is about the invisible threads that connect time, memory, and human hands. It began in a room filled with sound, the pounding rhythm of the mint, the shimmer of copper dust in the air, and it lives now in the hush of collectors' rooms, in the gentle breath of those who study it by lamplight. Between those two silences, an entire world exists, the world of chance, of patience, of the endless human search for significance. The coin itself does not speak. It doesn't know it is precious. It doesn't know it changed the lives of those who found it, or that its story would be told across generations. It only endures, and in that endurance lies its lesson. The 1982 D penny teaches that history doesn't announce itself in grand gestures. It lingers quietly, waiting for recognition. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is only attention, the willingness to see what others overlook somewhere. Maybe even now, a child is turning over pennies on a kitchen table. They're not searching for treasure, they're just playing with the sound of metal. But one day, that same child might read about this coin, might weigh their own collection, might feel the same spark that has guided collectors for decades. That is how stories live forever, not through value, but through wonder handed down. The penny's journey mirrors our own. We are all struck by time, shaped by pressure, marked by the world around us. We all move through countless hands, sometimes noticed, sometimes forgotten. Yet within each of us lies that same possibility, that one day, someone will see the rare pattern we carry and recognize the beauty in what was once ordinary. The 1982 D cent is proof that imperfection, when preserved, becomes legacy. Out if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, the faint ring of copper meeting metal, the heartbeat of creation echoing through the mint floor. That sound becomes rhythm, becomes pulse, becomes life. And as it fades, it becomes something more, a memory of craftsmanship, of patience, of human care. We are drawn to such sounds because they remind us of our origins, the meeting of matter and meaning, the transformation of effort into art. Perhaps that is why we still hold on to coins even in an age of digital numbers. They are tangible memory, proof that we were here, that we made things that could last. Every nick, every scratch, every tarnished curve tells of hands that have lived, of lives that have touched one another in ways too small to measure. The 1982 D penny, with its improbable story, is a mirror held to time itself, showing us not what we owned, but what we cherished. The legend of its worth, $16,000 million, a number beyond reason, is not really about money. It is about imagination. It is about the need to believe that something so humble can contain infinity. It's about seeing possibility where others see none. In that way, this coin is less an artifact than a philosophy, a reminder that discovery is not about finding what is rare, but about learning to recognize the miraculous in what has always been there. As the screen fades to black, the camera lingers on the coin one last time. Light slides across its face like the sun over distant hills. The letters glimmer, the date stands still, 1982, and the tiny D remains as it always was, small, unassuming, eternal. The world moves around it, but it remains in perfect stillness, holding everything that words can't say. And then, in that quiet, we hear the voice of history whisper once more, look closer, because maybe that is all the story has ever asked of us, to look closer at the things we overlook, to listen to what does not shout, to see that even a penny can hold a universe. The story of the 1982 D Lincoln cent is the story of us, our mistakes, our miracles, our endless reaching for meaning in the mundane. It reminds us that greatness doesn't need to be large, that wonder doesn't need to be rare, and that sometimes the smallest coin in your hand can hold the weight of time itself. So the next time you pick up a penny, pause. Feel its cool surface, its gentle curve, its whisper of history. It may be common. It may be worn. But who can say what secrets it holds? Who can say what story waits inside it? Somewhere, perhaps in your own palm, history might already be glinting, quiet and alive, waiting only to be seen. Because in the end, the coin's true worth is not in its metal or its price, it is in its story, and the stories it will continue to inspire, as long as there are eyes that wonder, hearts that listen, and hands willing to hold it close. And with that, the light fades. The screen darkens. Only the sound remains, the soft, eternal ring of a penny falling onto a wooden table. There comes a moment at the end of every story when sound fades and all that remains is breath, the breath of memory, the breath of time itself. The story of the 1982 D Lincoln cent has reached that moment. The camera lingers on copper glowing in the half-light, on the worn ridges that once gleamed like sunrise. Somewhere beyond the lens, the city hums, unaware that a small circle of metal has outlasted empires of noise. In that hush, meaning becomes visible. We see Lincoln's face again, patient and unwavering. The light traces the lines of his cheek, the calm resolve in his eyes. He is not just an image pressed into metal, he is the embodiment of endurance. Through decades of change, through every hand that spent and saved, he has remained, silent but steadfast. The coin carries that stillness, that quiet dignity, as if whispering that the worth of things is measured not in shine but in survival. Around him, the world has transformed. Paper became digital, sound became signal, and the tangible gave way to light on a screen. Yet this coin, born in the age of metal and machinery, continues to exist, a stubborn echo of a slower rhythm. It reminds us that progress may move forward, but memory circles back. What we create to spend often ends up buying us a piece of remembrance. The 1982 penny has become a mirror for everyone who has ever searched for meaning in the ordinary. It asks us to look at our own lives as though they, too, were struck by a minting press of fate, each of us unique because of the tiny imperfections, the misstrikes, the deviations from design. Perfection is sterile, it leaves no story behind. But the flaw, the anomaly, the thing that shouldn't have been, that is where life hides its beauty. Yet if you listen closely, you can almost hear Lincoln speaking through the silence of the coin. What endures is not what glitters, but what carries purpose. His gaze does not look backward, it looks forward, past us, toward a horizon we can't yet see. The penny becomes his messenger, small enough to fit between two fingers, strong enough to carry an entire nation's ideals, and perhaps that is why we keep it, why we search through change jars and old purses, why we weigh and measure, why we dream of finding the impossible copper small date. It isn't greed that drives us, it's the yearning to touch something real, to hold history in our hands and feel it answer back. In that instant of recognition, time folds, the past and the present meet in the curve of a coin, and we understand that we are part of a story much larger than ourselves. The screen now shows the Lincoln Memorial, bathed in twilight. The pillars stand like measures of rhythm, the steps like notes of a song only the heart can hear. A single penny rests at the foot of the monument, gleaming faintly in the evening air. The wind moves, carrying the scent of rain and metal. The narrator's voice lowers to a whisper. The penny is no longer currency, it is communion, a link between what was and what will be. In every era, humanity leaves behind small witnesses, shards of pottery, lines of verse, pressed metal bearing faces and dates. Long after we are gone, they remain to tell whoever comes next that we were here, that we made, that we believed. The 1982 coin will be one of those witnesses. It will lie quietly in its case or drawer, long after voices fade, and still it will speak. I was struck by chance, but kept by faith. The final image fades to a close-up of that surface, scratches catching the last glint of light. For a heartbeat, it looks alive, as though the copper itself breathes. The voice continues, softer now, almost a prayer. Every story leaves a trace. Every touch leaves a mark. Every coin, every life, every moment pressed by time becomes a testament to what we cherished. The 1982 cent endures because it teaches us to see the invisible value the overlooked remember the forgotten find wonder in the weight of a single, simple thing. The music swells, slow and distant. The image fades to black. And over that darkness, one final sound, the faint, eternal ring of copper meeting air, then silence, deep, endless, luminous, and within that silence, the story of the 1982 Lincoln penny lives on. When the story appears to end, something still lingers, a breath, a shimmer of copper in the dark. The lights have dimmed, the last note of music fades, yet the image of that small coin remains, turning slowly in memory. It glows not because of metal, but because of everything that was poured into it, the years, the curiosity, the hope of those who believed that even one forgotten cent could change how we see the world. Time has a way of softening sound. What was once the clang of minting presses becomes a rhythm inside the mind. It repeats like a heartbeat, quiet and familiar. Each strike becomes a pulse of creation, a reminder that somewhere, long ago, intention met accident and gave birth to wonder. The camera drifts across empty countertops, dusty shelves, jars half filled with change. In that slow movement, the voice of the film returns, softer than before, as if speaking directly to the heart. Every object you keep tells a story you've forgotten. Every coin in every jar holds a fragment of the world that made you. The 1982 cent is one of those fragments, a doorway, a whisper, a memory disguised as metal. The light shifts again. We see hands, old, young, different, passing pennies across generations. A father to a child. A collector to a friend. A stranger dropping one in a charity box. None of them know which penny it is, and that is the beauty of it. The story lives not in ownership but in continuation. The act of passing, of giving, of noticing, that is what keeps the legend alive. Outside, night folds over the city. Somewhere, a streetlight flickers, and for an instant, a glint of copper answers back. It could be any penny, or perhaps the penny, the one that survived, the one that refused to be ordinary. The world moves on, But the light remembers, the narrator's voice slows, now barely more than thought. It may be that is all history really is, light remembering. We do not chase these coins only for value, we chase them for connection. We chase them because they remind us that we, too, are small things capable of meaning. The 1982 D Lincoln cent became a mirror, and in its reflection, we saw our own persistence. We saw that what seems common can become eternal when someone cares enough to look deeper. The music swells once more, distant and weightless. The camera rises above the table of scattered coins. They gleam like constellations under a dim lamp. Somewhere among them, unseen, the rare copper small date waits, patient as time itself, and the voice says, almost in a whisper, hold on to wonder. Hold on to memory. Hold on to the small things, for they are the ones that hold you. The screen fades again to black. Only the faint sound of a coin spinning on wood remains. It slows, it wobbles, it stops. Silence. Then, from that silence, a final echo, not spoken, but felt. Every penny tells a story. Every story leaves a trace. The 1982 D will never stop shining, because someone, somewhere, will always be looking, and with that, the film exhales darkness. Stillness. A single glint of copper. And so, at the edge of the story, the world turns once more. The 1982 D penny lies beneath the vast silence of time, glinting faintly as if the sun itself remembers it. Around it, everything moves, cities rise, memories fade, generations change, but the coin remains, holding still the heartbeat of a century. It does not age in the way we do, it simply endures. That is its secret, and its gift. We live in a world that measures worth in speed, in numbers, in noise. But this coin, small and unassuming, teaches a different lesson, that value is patient. That beauty waits. That meaning does not come from what is spent, but from what is kept. Somewhere in that copper circle, all of human curiosity resides, the desire to hold time in our hands, to capture the uncatchable, to say, I was here. I mattered. I in the reflection of that coin, we see our own story. We see how moments, like pennies, scatter and roll away, yet somehow, a few remain saved, remembered, passed down. We see how each life, like each coin, is struck once by chance and shaped forever by the world that receives it. No two are truly alike. Each bears the mark of the minting press of experience, the fine scratches of time, the soft polish of love and use. The voice grows softer, almost reverent now. The 1982 D penny reminds us that every miracle begins in silence. No fanfare marked its creation, no celebration greeted its discovery. It was a whisper, not a shout, and that whisper became legend. The world found greatness not because it was promised, but because someone cared enough to notice. The camera drifts across a field of coins, some dull, some shining, all catching the faint glow of morning. Light bends and scatters, like stars across a night sky. Each one is a world, a universe of small histories. Together, they form the map of human hands and hearts, a constellation of every exchange, every gift, every act of keeping. The 1982 D is just one of them, but its light seems to reach farther, carrying the warmth of everything we've lost and everything we still hope to find. And then the voice continues, slower now, like an ancient rhythm. If a single coin can hold such meaning, then so can a single life. If copper and time can outlast centuries, then so can kindness. If one mistake can create something beautiful, then perhaps nothing is ever truly lost. The story of this coin is the story of imperfection transformed into wonder. It is proof that even the smallest error can leave behind something immortal. It is proof that we are all, in our own ways, minted by time, pressed by moments, marked by history, shining not because we are flawless, but because we endure. The camera rises. The sound of the mint fades into the wind. The world below blows in copper tones, rooftops, rivers, the faint hum of life. Somewhere, a child drops a penny into a fountain and makes a wish. The ripples carry outward, endless and light. The narrator's final words hover in the air. The 1982 D Lincoln cent was struck once and forgotten, yet it became eternal. It reminds us that nothing ordinary ever truly is. Each small act, each moment, each life, all are part of a vast design that only time can reveal. So keep the pennies. Keep the stories. Keep the wonder, because in the end, it is not the metal that matters, but the meaning we leave behind. The screen fades to black. The last sound is the soft echo of a penny landing on marble, one ring, pure and endless, as if time itself were still listening. Silence follows, and within that silence, the legend of the 1982 D cent endures, forever waiting, forever shining, forever reminding us that even the smallest spark of curiosity can light the entire world. The screen fades from darkness once more, just long enough for a single beam of soft light to reveal the penny one last time. It rests on an open palm, quiet and eternal. The narrator's voice returns, low and steady, carrying the weight of everything that has been said before and everything that still lingers unsaid. In the end, all that remains is the story of a coin that outlived its purpose, outlasted its age, and outshone its value. The 1982 D Lincoln cent, a fragment of copper born in an age of change, became more than currency. It became memory itself, captured in metal, waiting for someone to listen. The camera lingers close. You can almost see the tiny ridges of its surface, the faint scars left by time, the way light bends and dances on its worn edges. It is imperfect. But that imperfection is what makes it beautiful. Just as every life, every dream, every story, carries its own small marks, reminders of where it's been, what it has survived, and how it continues to shine in spite of everything, the voice softens, now almost a whisper somewhere. A collector looks down at their table. They hold the coin, not for money, not for fame, but for the feeling it gives, the strange warmth of knowing they are connected to something older, something infinite. That is what this coin offers. It does not just belong to history, it is history, captured in your hands. The light shifts again. We see the old Denver Mint in silhouette, its bricks glowing in the dusk. The machines have long since fallen silent, but their echoes live on in every coin that carries the D, in every spark of metal that touched fire and emerged with a face and a name. The story is bigger than copper. It is the story of creation itself. The narrator breathes slowly, almost reverently. Every coin has a soul, if you know how to listen. Every piece of metal remembers the hands that shaped it, the world that needed it, the dreams that passed through it. The 1982 D Lincoln Cent is one such soul, forged by fire, marked by chance, and remembered by love. The sound of wind rises, distant and haunting. The camera drifts upward through a sky the color of old bronze. Stars flicker faintly, small, bright, eternal. Each one is a coin of light scattered across the universe, a reminder that everything we make reflects what we are. The voice continues, almost prayerful now. What is value, if not meaning? What is rarity, if not remembrance? What is wealth, if not the power to see beauty in the smallest of things? In that moment, the film becomes still. The world holds its breath, and the penny gleams, not because it is rare, but because it has been seen. And the narrator says the final words, calm and full of wonder. The 1982 D Lincoln Cent will always remind us that greatness often hides in the ordinary, that history is written in whispers, and that even a single penny can hold the heartbeat of time. Keep looking, keep listening, keep believing in small miracles. Because sometimes, the smallest things are the ones that last forever. The music fades. Soft and endless, the camera lingers on the coin as it rests quietly in the light, until the brightness grows too strong, and the image melts away. Not an ending, but a return to the beginning. A final whisper. 1 cent, 1 story. One world that we'll never forget. Black screen, silence, then, faintly, the sound of a single coin falling onto wood, ringing out into eternity.